friends. We're going to read another book today. So we're under the umbrella. Remember, the umbrella has different books underneath it of exploring memory stories. We have read or listened to someone read and talked about My Red-Headed Rotten Older Brother so far. The Printer we also read. And today we're going to do Grandma's Records. So, I'm going to give you a quick summary of this book. In the 1960s, the narrator spends his summers living with his grandmother. Together they would listen to her records, and she would tell stories of her childhood in Puerto Rico. One year, the two go to see a famous Puerto Rican band perform, and Eric learns why one certain song is special to his grandma. Alright. Today I'm going to read Grandma's Records by Eric Valquez. Raise your hand to yourself. Have you ever seen a vinyl record or a record player? That is similar to this. This is an old-fashioned record player. In the 1960s, when the story takes place, records were the main way for people to play music at home. How do you play music at home? I use my phone. It says, for my grandmother, Carmen Melando, 1909 to 1983. This song is for you. Every year, right after the last day of school, I'd pack a suitcase with my cool summer clothes, my favorite toys, and a sketchbook. Then my dog, Daisy, and I were off to Grandma's apartment in El Barrio. Because my parents worked, Grandma's apartment was my summer home. From the time my parents dropped me off until the day they picked me up, Grandma wrapped me in her world of music. Sometimes when she played a record, we would dance together. Other times, she would dance alone and tell me her stories about growing up in Puerto Rico. When Grandma played a merengue in the Dominican Republic, her hips would sway from side to side. As her favorite salsa record played, she'd say, just listen to that conga, while she played an imaginary drum. Look at Grandma's dress and the TV set behind her. How do they help you know the most of the story does not happen in the present day? Probably because we don't really have TVs like that anymore. We have flat screen ones, or even just black or bulkier ones, some of us still have. Grandma liked all types of music, but one record was very special to her. Whenever she played it, she would put her hand over her heart and close her eyes as she sang along. When it was over, Grandma would sometimes sit quietly, thinking about Grandpa and the old days in Sanchurch, her hometown. Sometimes, Grandma said, a song could say everything that is in your heart as if written just for you. Why do you think Grandma feels like this song was written just for her? Look at the expression on her face. You ever had a feeling that the song was just for you? That's why Mr. Wolf and I's wedding song is a love song, and the words we feel like are for us. That's why we chose that one. My favorite days were the ones when Grandma would tell me, you pick the records today. No matter what I would choose, Grandma would always say, siempre me gusta tu selección. I always like your selection. Sometimes I would sneak in Grandma's special song just to watch her put her hand over her heart and sing. Then she'd always ask, ¿Cómo te sabes? How do you know? It was too hot to go outside. I'd spend hours looking through all the grandma's album covers. I'd pick out my favorites and make sketches of the art. As I drew, I could see the record covers coming to life and the bands performing right there in Grandma's living room. Grandma never went to any nightclubs to see her favorite bands perform. She was happy just to stay home with me and listen to her scratchy records. But Stan Schurz was home to hundreds of musicians, and she knew a lot of the people who played on the records. Grandma's nephew Sammy played percussion in Rafael Cortijo's band, and the best band in Puerto Rico. One day when the band was in town, Sammy brought over Cortijo and the band's lead singer, Ismael Riviera, for a surprise visit. Home-cooked meals were hard to come by on the road, and they couldn't pass up a chance to taste Grandma's famous arroz con gandules, rice and pigeon peas. While eating dessert, Sammy had another surprise for Grandma. 2 tickets to the band's first New York concert and their brand new record, which wasn't even in the stores yet. I raced over to the record player, thrilled to be the first New Yorker to hear their latest music. The next day, Grandma and I spent all day shopping for clothes to wear to the show. She even made me get a haircut. Direct from Puerto Rico, Cortijo y su combo con Ismael Riviera. One night only, a wonderful stage show. The theater was all the way up in the Bronx. We took the subway there, and Grandma was nervous during the whole ride. When we got to the theater, we walked past the long line of people and went right inside because of our special tickets. The theater was bigger than all the movie theaters I'd ever gone to. What do the words and illustrations say about Rafael Cortijo's band? With all of the people there, I would say they're a very popular band, and they're on a huge sign. So it must be very popular and a lot of people wanting to go. The band made a spectacular entrance. Suddenly the theater went dark. Tiny lights glittered and a loud siren filled the air. I heard Grandma gasp, "Ay, Dios mío! Oh my gosh!" She thought something was wrong. The darkened stage seemed to fill with people running back and forth in confusion. Next, everything went dark again and a loud and steady conga beat began. Boom, back, boom, back, boom, back. Then the lights came on with a loud boom, and the band began to play the song El Bombón de Elena, Elena's Candy. Graham and I were surprised at how different the music sounded live. The musicians made familiar sounds or songs sound fresh by adding new musical phrases and words. Before the last song began, Ismael said, "This one goes out to Carmen," and he pointed to his grandma as he sang her special song. I looked at her just as she put her hand over her heart, raised her other hand, closed her eyes, and began to sing along. Ismael was singing to my grandma. Then I looked around and realized that everyone in the theater had their hands over their hearts too. What an amazing moment, right? This is for the boy and the grandmother. I wonder why everyone else is doing the same thing as grandma. This must be one of the songs that really um, felt something for everyone. After the show, we went backstage. I asked Ismael how he knew about his grandma's song. He explained that the song was about coming to a new country and having to leave those you love behind. People put their hands over their hearts to show that their hearts remain in Puerto Rico, even though they may be far away. Now we understood why Grandma's song was special to so many people. Over the next days and weeks, Grandma and I put on our own shows, imitating Cortijo's band. Grandma wished such a special night had been captured in a recording so that she could listen to it again and again. But even though I knew that the concert is so special because it leaves you with a memory of a magical moment in time. As I got older, I started bringing over my records to play for Grandma. Brazilian music, jazz, and even rap. She loved listening to it all. Even now, when I'm playing CDs in the studio, I imagine I'm back in Grandma's living room, and she turns to me and says, "You be the DJ today. Siempre me gusta tu selección." And so I work Grandma's special songs surround me. Here is the song in Spanish and English. I'll read some of the Spanish and then I'll read the English part. En mi viejo San Juan by Noel Estrada. En mi viejo San Juan cantado sueños, porque en mis años de infancia. In my old San Juan, in my old San Juan, I grew up with so many dreams. My first illusion and anxieties, but love are all soulful memories. One evening I left for the foreign land. It was destiny's will, but my heart remained by the seashore of the old San Juan. Goodbye, loved, beloved border queen. Goodbye, my pearl of sea. I'm leaving, but someday I will return to look for my love, to dream once again in my old San Juan. But time passed, and destiny eased my homesickness, and I could not return to San Juan that I loved, little piece of my native land. My hair has turned white as my life slowly fades. Death seems to call, and I don't want to die separated from you, Puerto Rican of my soul. That was the book. Good book, huh? The story is based on memories from the author's life. The focus is not just on telling the events, but showing how those events affected the author's life. What do you think the author wanted to tell the readers? That is your question of the day that you need to respond in Seesaw. What do you think the author wanted to tell the readers?